All right, so we're ready to resume with the afternoon sessions. We have a packed and exciting program, and we're going to start with a series of 4 short talks, which should be very entertaining. Looking forward to it. Anshuman, you have the screen.
Thanks so much. So my name is Anshuman Mohan. I'm presenting to you Littleton. This is brought to you by the same folks who brought you Orlando a few hours ago. And indeed, Littleton does interact with Orlando significantly. Littleton basically wakes up to that truth that lawyers don't read ASTs. The few lawyers who would protest this statement are in this room right now, and so that says something already. Here's Orlando. It's a programming language for property law. It starts with this English-like surface syntax that this person O owns property P and conveys property P to a person A for life, and then on to B. Orlando will take this and compile it into essentially an AST, which it calls an interest tree. It looks like this, and there's a whole talk a few hours ago which explained how such a tree is useful and can be sort of pruned and modified, and sort of PL and CS can be done to this. The point Littleton wants to make is that this is just a little hard to reason about for a non-expert. This is a little bit better, right? This is what Littleton does with that tree. The same information is conveyed differently, where O's ownership of P is conveyed by O being sort of the only person on this line at first. After O conveys this property in this way, you have this new line diagram where A is the owner while alive, after which B becomes the owner. Very nice. A further theme of Littleton is that it brings to the surface the ability to experiment with and modify these conveyances. And often this leads to a greater understanding of the conveyance and better drafting and so on. In particular, you can add on further subconveyances, and you can add on life events which might change the ground truth and might actually modify what happens in real life as a law is interpreted. So let's bring up our whole example. O owns P and gives it to A. And then let's add on a subconveyance, which is A says, I own property P, let me give it to C for life. Littleton then generates 2 little diagrams. The first is the same as before, but now we have a further little diagram where C has a loop under A's loop, which says that while C is alive, C is the owner of the property. All looks good, and presumably at C's death, C's sort of while loop along with C's interest will be cut out, leaving A the owner, and presumably when A dies, B will become the owner. But you needn't take my word for it. You can actually just try it out. So let's kill A. This is what's left, right? A goes away and C goes away, leaving only B the owner. Now, maybe you expected this to happen. I'm not sure. Some of you might have been a bit surprised, because the truth is that the conveyance written out on line 2 had a sort of a subtlety in it, which is that anything that A does with this property is still limited to A's life. So A's death also immediately cut out any ownership C had over this property. Even if all you want to do is draft sort of line 2, it really was helpful to write down line 3 and line 4 and sort of play with this conveyance until you get it right, so for your definition of right. Third thrust of Littleton is that the law really cares how you came to own something and not just that you came to own something. It really matters whether you got something as a direct gift, as a result of somebody else's death, whether there was any condition at all, like sort of before you got something. In particular, from the realm of taxation, it really matters. And there's, in fact, a long history of sort of tax evasion on these rules, and then the law sort of trying to play catch up and trying to make more and more fine-grained laws to sort of catch people who are trying to evade tax. So the information that we want is actually already in this diagram. We just need to very carefully bring it up to the surface. So as I do the next transition, observe these green bubbles, which will all suddenly become a lot more legal than just a letter. So now, A has a possessory estate in life estate, and afterwards B has a vested remainder in fee simple. After A does away with this property, gives it to C, C has possessory estate in life estate, while A has a reversion in life estate. Now, we won't get into the property law of it all and get into all the details, but suffice it to say that real lawyers really care for these words to be sort of done correctly. And there's often a domino effect down the line because of how you came to own something and so on. And so it's sort of nice that Littleton can be used to get this right and give the lawyers sort of the legalese that they want. This all comes together in a nice pedagogical resource. This is a website where all the screen caps you've seen so far came from. Don't look at the example right now; it's a bit much. But the point is that there's a little area where you can plug in your English-like syntax, hit interpret, and see what comes out. Play with it further, and it's all a quick little. It allows for quick iteration and indeed quick learning. We have already plugged in a number of examples, dozens of examples from the standard textbook in this area that the average law student studies in their first year. This is Edwards Estates and Land and Future Interests. And again, you can click something, it pops up upstairs. You click interpret, and then it gives you the answer. And then you can, of course, play with it further to cement your understanding. So Orlando was a programming language for property law. And Littleton comes in and connects Orlando back to the legal audience. And this unleashes some significant power because Orlando plus Littleton is really a system for property law. Now, system here is very vaguely defined, but in our case, it has really helped out by opening up the possibility of deployment in classrooms. And you may have sort of seen hints of this with our plugging in of a whole textbook. And we're excited by this because it sort of allows us to really talk to real practitioners or practitioners to be, sort of as a stepping stone to maybe accessing real practitioners in the business. But this is nice because adding on the tool and doing the work of building the system and bringing it all together is going to allow us to build a better system overall and indeed a better language overall. You can try it out right now. It lives there. If you are a practitioner or a teacher and you want to give it a go, please get in touch. We'd love to talk. Otherwise, thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Anshuman. Questions from the room? Yes.
Hi. Would it be possible to kind of flip this on its head and have kind of Scratch for property law, where you can instead build these and then turn them back into law?
My answer to that would be, it sounds very difficult. But as far as I know, we have not thought about that. We've stuck to the direction that I sort of presented here. But it's something you can think about for sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions in the room? And one last question online. Yep.
Yes, we have, and James has been exploring this a little bit, and he's gone to a few classrooms. I think my guess would be 3 or 4, not dozens yet. But yes, there is a critical sort of a couple-week period when students really struggle with this kind of thing in a classroom. And as far as I understand, it really has helped them to have this tool to play with.
Cool. We have time. Next online question.
Sorry.
Yeah, Anshuman, can you see the question?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see it for a second. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but the tool is already doing this. You can already add further events and see the answer for the little slots just below.
All right. Well,
maybe the question asker could give the tool a try, and then maybe we can talk offline to see if it's doing what they wanted to do.
I'm sure that sounds good. There are further questions, but since this is a lightning talks session, I suggest we thank the speaker